You're listening to the 49 Carats podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, August 21st, and over the weekend, the 49ers beat the Broncos in dramatic fashion for a preseason game. And joining me to review the game is one of my favorite fellow women in sports, Laurie Fitzpatrick. Laurie's awesome, if you guys don't know about her yet. Former WFA player, currently writing for Fan Buzz, The Read Optional, and Nittany Central. Did I pronounce that right? Is it Nittany? Nittany.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Yeah, you got so much knowledge of the game, Lauren, so I'm excited to talk Niners with you, especially because you're not normally like talking about the 49ers, so I like to get different perspectives on the pod every so often. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I mean, it's a Monday, right? So we all kind of hate Mondays, but this is a victory Monday for you guys. And
there we go.
You know, your kicker had a walk-off, for the win. So that was kind of exciting. There's a lot to dive into. So, I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Steph.
Yeah, for sure. So first order of business that I think we need to discuss for this game is, of course, the quarterbacks and of course, Brock Purdy, because it was his first game action since the NFC Championship game in which he got hurt. I think we were all kind of anxious to see how he would do. And I thought it was a pretty efficient drive from Purdy. I believe he finished 4 of 5. I would have liked to see his drive end in a touchdown. They were in the red zone, had a few shots there, but I'll just say this. It doesn't look like Purdy has lost a step at all in this offense. He looked like pretty much the same guy who led them all throughout the playoffs. And, he did take a sack, but, the positive there is that he got his first hit out of the way, right? In his first game action. So I think that's the one positive. But I thought it was he looked good out there.
Yeah, no, I don't think he missed a beat. Honestly, he looked like the same old Brock Purdy. And on that sack, I don't think that was I don't really think he had an opportunity to kind of let it go. I think that I think number 99 came in unblocked, so he really didn't have a chance. And you kind of get rid of it in that situation when a guy's kind of running at you. You're not really sure where that ball is going to land. So he would rather take that sack instead of just force it. So I think it ended up being a okay sack by him. It wasn't like a terrible decision to kind of take that.
I agree. And I actually, this morning, I pointed out there was a clip of that sack, and you can see Ty Davis Price, whiffing on the block. And so that's bad on him. If he's going to get on the field, he looked great in camp as far as, rushing goes. He looked like a completely different player from last year's camp. But if he's going to be able to, if he wants to get on the field, he's going to have to, pass protect a little bit better. So hopefully that's something he can work on. But yeah, I was kind of blaming the sack a bit on TDP, but I'm with you. He'd have probably had a touchdown had it not been for that sack. Look, we got a question for you, Laurie, in the chat already. Gammon Brown, thanks for the donation. He says, J. Cole or Drake?
It really depends on the mood. Clubbing and everything else in my old days probably would have been Drake. But if, I'm trying to send a message and I'm trying to get in the zone, definitely J. Cole.
I like that. I like that answer. Man, they're bringing the tough questions early. This is how you get initiated to 49er fans, I guess.
I love it. Hopefully that was a good enough answer. I mean, J. Cole's that lyricist, so I got to give it to him.
He is. I'd probably say the same thing. We could go to another entirely different podcast just on that topic alone.
For real, let's just start it.
Right. But we'll stay on track here. And yes, Gammon said that was a solid answer, so good job. But yeah, I mean, overall, Purdy I thought was great. He only had the one drive, so we'll take that. I was glad that he got that opportunity to play in that game because I know at first Kyle Shanahan was, kind of unsure whether he should go out there. But hopefully we could see him a bit in the third preseason game as well. We'll see how that happens or how that shakes out. But Sam Darnold played in this game as well as he did, the week prior, but he got a go earlier than he did the week prior. Last week, Trey Lance had started. Sam Darnold took the second half. This time, Sam Darnold was the quarterback who went in after Brock Purdy. And his first drive, I believe he had the starting offensive line with him as well as Kyle Juszczyk. He had the second unit wide receivers, so Debo and Ayuk didn't join him, and he had Jordan as well. But from then on, he had the second unit offensive line, if that means anything. He did get sacked 3 times. So I think some of that you can blame on the offensive line, maybe some of that on Darnold. But overall, I thought Darnold showed some good decision-making, and there were a couple of tuck and runs too. So I think that was good on his part. My favorite throw from him was probably his strike to Ronnie Bell in stride over the middle, followed by his throw to the outside to Newsome. And that both happened on Darnold's final drive late in the third quarter. And I think that drive was capped by the touchdown. So he did finally get a touchdown because everyone was like, none of Darnold's drives in the preseason has resulted in any points. So they were tapping on him for that. But he was able to get some points there at the end. So he had 5 series total, maybe a little more than I would have liked to see from Darnold, quite honestly. He had three and outs and also a turnover, which wasn't his fault. But overall, okay day from Darnold.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's okay as well. Like there were a few times where they brought pressure, the defense, and he got it out so early. And you were like, wow, you thought he was going to take a sack there, and then they just kept blitzing. So he kind of like didn't really have a choice. But he was sensing pressure. He got out, which was good. But there were 2 plays that he ran it, and I didn't think he really had to. So it was like, why don't you just throw the ball? Like I'm pretty sure he had 2 guys that ran out routes. And then a guy sitting like right above that out route. And instead of just like giving it to the guy on the sideline, he ended up running it through the middle. And it was just like, that's not really what your forte is. So, maybe he's just trying to keep up with Trey Lance and in terms of running the ball. So he's like, oh yeah, I can run too. Like I need to be QB2. Look, I can run, when it's just like, you should have maybe thrown that. But I just think that they did pressure him a lot. So he didn't do too bad of a job, but he didn't like blow me away or anything. Last week he did better, right?
Yeah, I think he did, but I think like he didn't blow me away. It, like perfectly encapsulates everything that Sam Darnold is. Like,
yeah,
that, like he's good enough, but like nothing throughout camp, throughout the preseason games we've seen has really, I think, blown anyone away. So I think that's why there's still this discussion of like, is he the QB2 or is it going to be Trey Lance? Because Trey Lance, while he is very volatile, and we'll talk more about that in a bit, like there is some, he has some flashes that you go, oh, maybe he could be better than what Sam Darnold can give you. But at the same time, Sam Darnold's kind of the safe option right now. So, I see it both sides. But yeah, Sam Darnold really hasn't done anything special. I do see what you mean, though, that I think he gets uncomfortable in the pocket if he's there for too long. So maybe that might explain why he kind of just ran for a couple of those. But better than throwing a pick, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, the contrast from like Trey Lance, Sam Darnold doesn't need like 2 drives to get going like Trey Lance needs. He can kind of come in right off the bat and, get those throws, make those throws. Maybe if, Purdy has to take, 1 series out, Sam Darnold can come in and you'll feel comfortable, as opposed to Trey Lance kind of needs a drive or 2 to kind of get going. So he, Trey Lance maybe in the long run, maybe, more of that, an option because he's kind of a dual threat. But to kind of rely on him as QB2, that's more of a that's an iffy one there. So
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up because that's been something I've been kind of echoing, these last couple weeks as well. Like for a team that has to decide on who their backup is going to be, I don't know if you can depend on a guy that starts slow. That's not the quality of a backup. While I'm rooting for Lance and all that, and Darnold hasn't really blown me away, as we've been saying. That's the big difference, I think, between the two that I've noticed. And so I'm glad you brought that up. Another question from Gammon Brown here. Another initiation question. As far as route running is concerned, where do you place Brandon Ayuk in the NFC?
I mean, I would say, wow, that's tough. Like AJ Brown is pretty good. Obviously he can, shed off tackles just like Ayuk. I don't know. That's tough. I don't like rankings because then it's like you kind of solidify where that guy goes, and if like he has a killer season, which I'm gonna assume that he's going to, but I would definitely say top 5. I mean, I think he's really good. So I don't know. Maybe I just want to get on the good side. So top 5.
Top 5 is a safe answer because I mean you can't forget Justin Jefferson as well, and you mentioned AJ Brown. So yeah, Gammon says fair. You're passing the test here. So good job. But yeah. So going back to the quarterbacks, like I think that's kind of the dilemma right now with the decision for QB2. Let's just jump right into Trey Lance and how he did. So he went in with a minute left in the third, got a big cheer from the crowd. You always like to see that. And I thought that he looked very different from last week because I was pretty critical of some of the things that he definitely needed to improve after watching last week. There was a lot of indecisiveness last week, and that led to some of the sacks that he took. And so, in my opinion, he looked better. I mean, the interception, of course, on the screen, that was on an encouraging drive, so you hate to see that. But luckily, the 49ers did get the ball back quickly after that. But yeah, I thought he was decisive. He was letting it rip, which is one of the things that Kyle Shanahan was kind of, begging him to do. But he was also patient, I thought, when he needed to be. He continues to process through his reads pretty quickly. I thought he showed better pocket awareness too, and just like speed escaping pressure, because that was something I didn't see too much of last week as well. And he did have that designed run that was negated, unfortunately, by a penalty run. But I mean, a penalty.
I was going to mention that.
But I did like that one because that would have been for a first down. I thought that was a pretty nice play. And then he had little over 5 minutes on the game-winning drive. Tay Martin had a straight-up drop on a nice layered throw that should have been caught. But that one would have been negated by the hold. I believe Joey Fisher was called for holding anyway, so that one wouldn't have counted. But you see some good. You also see some bad, because I think he had 4 turnover-worthy throws from my vantage point when I watched the game back, including the interception that he had. And so you got to clean that up. You got to be more consistent, be a little more accurate. And I think while he did look more decisive, there were some times where, maybe he could have thrown it a little sooner, or maybe, he didn't make the throw he was supposed to. So improvements, yes. Perfect? No. I mean, obviously he's going to need way more reps to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously as I mentioned already, as we both mentioned, it's more about, him finally taking reps. And then when that last drive came, or actually the second to last too, he was getting it out quicker. He wasn't hesitating as much. I even saw a tweet that his time to throw, it decreased by almost a second. So it was in week 1, it was 3.34 seconds time to throw. In week 2, it was 2.64 seconds time to throw. So he was getting it out quicker. So it's good, that the coach was kind of harping on him to kind of be able to do that, because Shanahan can scheme guys open. So it's why are you trying to make the reads when you don't have to? The guys are open. And finally, he really started to get into a rhythm. I don't know how a rookie is like your safe guy, like with Bell. It's just like with Sam Darnold and with Trey Lance, like, Bell was always the one to kind of, to be that guy to kind of get that first down and keep the chains moving. But the decision making at times for Trey Lance, like that one ball over the middle, when he had two linebackers collapsing on that guy, and you decide to make that throw, it's like when he has to go through the reads, like when Shanahan doesn't draw up the perfect play for him, that's where it's like getting iffy because you have to look all the way on the left side of the field instead of a guy maybe running a post, so you only have to look maybe right past that first read to the second read, but in that play, he had to look all the way over to the sideline in order to kind of find that guy. And he didn't even do that. He just forced it right to that right over the middle, and that linebacker almost picked it off. So I feel like there's a little bit of tunnel vision, and that's what happened on that interception on the screen. He just didn't even like it. I don't even think it was about him not chipping the ball over. It was like, you can't do that because it's going to take way too long for the running back to get it. You have to like sidearm it, like a Patrick Mahomes type of sidearm. Like, I don't know, maybe if the running back should have gotten to a different angle, that because the running back was right behind that defensive lineman. So it was just like how, Trey Lance had to be able to maneuver and kind of, like I said, throw a Patrick Mahomes type of ball in order to get that to him. I just think in general, it wasn't like great. Honestly, I don't even remember that first game. I have only seen highlights, so I don't have a good I don't have a good opinion on the difference between week 1 and week 2 for him, but he did okay once he started to get into rhythm. That touchdown drive was awesome, but like I was saying, Shanahan kind of drew up the perfect play for him, and Ronnie Bell is just like an awesome yak guy. So he was able to kind of dump it off to him and to be able to, to make the plays. So it was good that he was able to get rid of it early, but I just don't like the slow starts. I don't like the slow starts at all. That's what's going to keep him out of QB2.
I think so. I hate to say it because, like, yes, you see some of the good. Like, if he started how he finished, we wouldn't even. I think it would be a much closer conversation. And I know people who are really big fans of Trey Lance, thinks he should be the QB2. I don't know if it's that simple. I do see the improvements. I think that's a positive, of course. It's a reason to be encouraged. But I think we need to see more. And the question is, is he going to be able to show us more? And is that more going to be enough, before they have to make that decision? That's what I don't know. And it's unfortunate because he's kind of been robbed of those opportunities because of the injuries that he's dealt with in the past. And now it's make or break time for him. And he has to go out there and, from his first snap, he has to, be on it. And so the slow starts are a little concerning for me. But also, I think you also made another great point about him kind of, he doesn't really disguise where he's going with the ball beforehand. So he kind of does stare down where he intends to go. I think there was one play that I think it might've been on the touchdown to Latu actually, where he did hold the defender, the safety in the middle there before throwing it. That was good. We didn't see that in week 1, really.
Yeah, he threw it to your favorite player, Cameron Latu.
I was just telling Laurie how I have beef with Latu. You guys know I've been saying it. But we'll talk about Latu more in a bit because he did redeem himself a bit. But yeah, I just feel like Lance does have to make those improvements, and he has to make them fast. And I thought, he did improve quite a bit from week 1 to week 2 of the preseason. Can he make another big leap for week 3? I think that's what we need to see. And so I don't know. It's tough. It's going to be a tough decision. Look, I would like for the 49ers to keep both Darnold and Lance on the roster. Just, because to me, those are the best 3 quarterbacks. I don't think we've even seen Brandon Allen. We didn't see Brandon Allen this past week play. So, Yeah, exactly. So Brandon Allen, the fourth string quarterback, who knows if he'll even make the roster at this point. I would like to see Darnold and Lance be with Purdy be the top three quarterbacks. And then what happens after that, let the chips fall where they may, milk the Darnold or Lance as much as you can. I don't know if you saw that, Laurie, but they put Darnold or Lance in the QB2 slot on their unofficial depth chart. So milk that as long as you can. Like, if you don't have to say who your QB2 or 3 is, just don't. Just keep it or.
Yeah, that actually happened. When Urban Meyer was the coach of the Jaguars, he had Trevor Lawrence or Gardner Minshew as QB1, and it was just like, what? But yeah, some teams do that. So
yeah, so they should just try to do that as much as possible. I mean, who cares who your QB2 is?
Keep it competitive.
Yeah, exactly. And I think. I mean, Lance even said it after the game. He gets more comfortable and he learns things every time. He goes out there, even in the practices. And we got to remember, he hasn't really even gotten that much time to practice because of the injuries that he dealt with in the past. So it's really tough for him. So just keep him on the roster and see if he learns and improves, over time.
It's just terrible. Because he needs more snaps. That's it. Yeah. Because not all players are okay, he can step up in that moment, and like a Tom Brady, you come in when the starter gets injured and you're an amazing player. Sometimes it takes some time for quarterbacks. Look at Geno Smith. He came back and now he's playing fantastic, but it kind of takes some time for that to really click. So maybe that's a Trey Lance situation, but I just think he needs more snaps, because once he was kind of getting in rhythm, it looked exciting. So it's just that, that's the NFL.
Yeah, it is. And the 49ers, I totally understand why he wouldn't get those opportunities for snaps once the regular season rolls around. So as long as Lance is comfortable with that and the fan base is comfortable with that, I'm fine with Lance staying on the roster if they can make it work. Gammon Brown says, enough of the pleasantries. Rank these quarterbacks in order. Oh my God. All right. This is a tough one. Alex Smith,
God, Jeff Garcia,
Colin Kaepernick, Jeff Garcia, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy. Make fans angry. See, I was just warning Laurie about how toxic this fan base is, and enough of the pleasantries, Gammon said.
Why are you doing this?
I can help. I mean,
okay. It would be Alex Smith, right?
I mean, yeah. As if we're talking about his entire career, I'd probably put Alex. Well, actually, I mean, Kaepernick was electric in the short amount of time that he played. I don't know. I think I might put Kaepernick above just based on the talent that he had.
Kaepernick, Alex Smith. Oh wow, Garoppolo. Oh my God, Jeff Garcia. I mean, he's they. I know that you guys don't love Philly, but he was fun in Philly.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, Garcia put up some solid years. So I guess the question is, I don't remember seeing too much of Garcia personally. That was just kind of when I started to watch the 49ers. So I don't know. I have a hard time ranking him. Brock Purdy, we have such a small sample size on Brock Purdy. So I would just strictly say this is just based on what we've seen from Purdy. I'd put him above Garoppolo. Would you put Purdy above Jeff Garcia? I don't know if I would.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, because we just don't know. We haven't seen enough of Purdy to really make that claim quite yet. You happy, Gammon? Well, they're enjoying this in the comments, but I'm glad that you guys are having fun with this. I appreciate it. We did get a question about the offensive line earlier that I kind of want to touch on, before we move on from the quarterbacks. Technic Chic says, speaking of O-line, who do you see as shining in O-line depth? I think the guy so far that through these 2 preseason games has kind of impressed the most is Ilm Manning. And he's been playing at, I believe, left tackle. And I mean, he continues to rack up some highlights. You guys see Brad, post the clips on Twitter, and when Brad likes someone, I like him too. So Il Manning, it seems to be that guy. And I think there's talk now of like, he needs to make this roster, because if they cut him, he's going to get snatched up by another team. So that's incredible for an undrafted free agent. But we've seen this situation before last season with Jordan Mason, right? So 49ers, I think, should keep Il Manning around. But Laurie, in the game you watched from yesterday, or 2 days ago, did anyone on the offensive line really stand out to you? I wouldn't even.
I mean, they blitzed a lot, so it was like, I feel like every other play, like there was always pressure, which isn't a good sign. But they were also blitzing, so you didn't really get a chance to see like, to examine the one-on-ones, and I only watched the all 22 of the defense, but Luciano was good. I think he was one of the top players, and he's a rookie, so I think that he was a guy that definitely stood out for me.
Yeah, and he's like been playing towards the end of games as well, so hopefully in this next game maybe they give him an opportunity with the second string. Who knows? We'll see. Ty Alston is here making jokes. We should chip in and buy Steph a Cam Latu jersey. # our favorite player. Yeah, thank you. they love me.
I got $5 on
that. They love me so much. But let's just go right into Cam Latu, actually, because I want to talk about redemption games. I think a few players had redemption games based on either how the game started for them or how they performed the previous week. And Cam Latu, definitely one of those guys that I think had a redemption game. Last week he had the one catch with the fumble. We've been hearing so much about all his drops all throughout camp and practice. But he did make a couple of catches, including a third down conversion on 3rd and 13. It's nice. And he also caught that touchdown at the end of the game, or towards the end of the game. So Cam Latu, good job. I mean, that might have saved him from getting cut, like potentially, I think.
Oh my God, you hate him so much. I think he played pretty good yesterday. I mean, but like I said, I didn't really watch like a ton of Latu in that first game. But I mean, he stretched out for some balls. He went 3 for 4 for 46 yards. And I think that 22-yarder was that touchdown. I mean, he was wide open. So he had to catch it, basically. If he didn't, then that's, definitely a concern. So, but I think he did all right. He had 34 snaps. So it wasn't a ton of snaps. Maybe he should have had a couple more. But yeah, I don't know. Wasn't bad in my opinion. But, now that I'm on here, I'm really going to pay attention to him now. Like, I may actually go back and watch him after we're done doing this, because I just either want to rub it in that he's better or jump on the bandwagon with you. Like, oh my God, this dude's terrible. So
yeah, you need a bigger sample size. Yeah, you need the bigger sample size for sure. Look, my thing is, and just for context, like, why people are unhappy with Latu to begin with stems from him getting picked in the 3rd round, which wasn't his choice. Like, it's not like he picked himself in the 3rd round. The 49ers made that decision. But I think from the moment that he was drafted in the 3rd round, a lot of us were like, that's way too early. Because, and I think long-term he can pan out and be someone, on this team. I think he's a great run blocker from what I've seen and what I've heard as well. But he's not going to be someone who's going to contribute right away. But even then, you need to be able to catch. Like, that's the bare minimum of what you should be doing. And if he's going to be dropping balls, then that's an issue. That's where it becomes an issue. And that's when, to me, I was like, I don't know if he should make the roster over someone like Braden Willis, another tight end who was drafted in the 7th round. So the 49ers have both of those rookies drafted entirely different spots. Braden Willis has been playing better. He's been consistent. And so that's why I was like, man, I don't know if Latu should make the roster, but I think he saved himself from getting cut just based on Saturday's game alone. And hopefully he can build on that performance in the next preseason game. Chris Wall here says, as Larry Krueger mentioned, I believe Latu's drops or issues were a product of thinking too much and being mentally overwhelmed with everything. I think he settled in and was more comfortable last game. I agree with that. I think it definitely is a mental issue. I mean, these guys are professional athletes.
That's what drops
Yeah,
are.
It's the yips. He had the yips. So hopefully this performance that he just had is the step in the right direction to him, shaking off the yips. So because he needs it. But Latu, other than that, I think was fine in that game. So I give him the redemption nod for that one. I also thought, while we talked about Trey Lance having the, good and bad of this game, I thought it was a redemption because I did see improvements in some of the areas that I specifically said he needs to improve on this. He did in some of those areas, so I put him there. Still need to see more from Lance. We're still acknowledging that. But Jake Moody, mentioned Jake Moody, who hit the game winner, and the reason that I had him as the one of the redemption players. Obviously, he missed 2 kicks in the first preseason game. He also missed the extra point early in the game. So bit of some yips for Moody as well, but I think he was able to turn it around, redeemed himself with 2 field goals in the fourth quarter, including the game winner. The 49ers made it a point to get him that opportunity to kick the game winner. Like Trey Lance could have continued to, try to get that touchdown. They said, no, we got the ball in field goal range. You're going to make this kick. And he did.
I think it's more important for them to, give Moody that opportunity as opposed to Trey Lance, because it's not like Trey's going to start. Moody is, that guy or he's not. So it's kind of a big deal. I heard on the broadcast that in the first game they wanted him to do for the kickoffs to get it outside the numbers, and it was kind of like something where we want you to place it in these specific spots, and maybe he was kind of thinking way too much about being perfect in terms of kickoffs, where it kind of just set him off mentally. And if there's a position that's mentally grueling, it's definitely the kicking. And it's he has to come in after Robbie Gould, who was he was that guy, and he was that guy for 5 years. So it's tough, but he definitely redeemed himself, going 3 for 3 on field goals. And, that extra point, they had already been up. So he had to make that last one, or else basically the loss would have been on him. So,
yeah, and that would have been really bad for his confidence, right? Yeah, I say it too. Kicking is so much about the mental side of it, and you need to be locked in mentally to perform well. And if you're not locked in and your confidence has wavered any amount, that can lead to some issues. So I'm glad that Moody shook off the 2 misses from the previous week, shook off the extra point miss. And honestly, the extra point miss, I know a miss is a miss, but the reason that it was missed was because of the wind. And people have been saying how difficult, I know Robbie Gould had mentioned it, how difficult it is to kick at Levi's, actually, because of where the seats end, and there's this bit of open space that the wind kind of runs through, which makes it difficult. So you could see on the extra point, and I know they mentioned it in the broadcast as well, that the wind just kind of took it. A lot of people were like, Robbie Gould needs to get a phone call. The only phone call he needs to get is from Moody, asking him, well, how do I improve kicking at Levi Stadium? I don't think the 49ers need to make any calls to Robbie Gould, though. So
it's definitely a pregame thing that he needs to call. Hey, what do you do pregame? Do you throw grass in there? Do you lick your finger, figure out, which way the wind is blowing? Because they even said that Robbie Gould is a meteorologist before games. he knew which way the wind was blowing, so he was able to kind of push it through. So
Yeah, it's definitely important. So hopefully this is the beginning of Jake Moody just, being awesome. Because again, Jake Moody drafted in the third round. Another reason why 49er fans need to feel validated every time he steps onto the field. So anytime he makes a mistake, anytime he misses, it's like, oh no, it's like, see, this is why you don't draft kickers in the third round and all that. But hopefully he can prove some people wrong. But look, let's get to the guys who have continued to raise their stock. These guys have kept their stock high through 2 weeks. And I'm just going to start with the linebackers, the rookie linebackers. Jalen Graham. I believe Graham was playing the mic after the first defensive drive or after Fred Warner sat, and D. Winters also making some flashy plays out there. Both of these guys. Graham looks like a veteran, and he was a 7th round pick. So what'd you see out of those guys?
Oh man, Graham looked great. He was everywhere. He was sideline to sideline. He was, making tackles. When running backs would either take the pitch or punch it, right outside the tackles, he was there. He was penetrating gaps. He was, initiating, contact. Shedding the blocks. He was good in coverage. He had that forced fumble. There were times where he couldn't get off blocks, and I think he was just trying to find out which gap the running back was trying to go through, because there were a couple really good runs by Denver, and it was just like, where did the San Francisco run defense go? And they had 2 rookies in there at the same time. So I think that was just a little bit like they seemed kind of too close together at times. Like there was one play where Graham was like trying to push the other like guy that was next to him. Like, can you get away from me so like we can, figure out the spacing here? But that just comes with, more reps. But I think he did really well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a great point. I was still in the process of watching the defense all 22. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that. That's a good point. But yeah, no, Jalen Graham has been making plays for the last 2 weeks now. D Winters, is also flashed, like I said. Another rookie that has been flashing is Jair Brown. And I only say this because not only say this because of this, but it's one of the things that has really stood out to me these last 2 weeks. 2 touchdown saving tackles in 2 consecutive weeks. He had the touchdown saving tackle ahead of halftime. And then so again, 2nd week in a row that he's done that, both near the goal line. Jair Brown, I think he's someone who Steve Wilkes is going to want to get on the field some way, somehow, at some point in the season, and I think he's ready for it. He's built like a veteran. It just comes with like the repetition of it, the just getting those extra snaps to really get his feet wet at this level. But I think he looks solid.
Yeah, he's a Nittany Lion, Jair Brown. Yeah, he's from Penn State, so. Those guys on defense, you got Joey Porter, and in next year's draft, you're going to have one of the top corners in the entire draft. He's going to come, I think his last name is King. He's coming from Penn State. So they just have like really good DBs come out of Penn State. And Jair is one of them. They were able to put him, in cover 1. He was alone back there. And he was making really good angles, strong pursuits. He had good recognition, especially on a couple screens. He kind of got into like the backfield, I guess, right where the line of scrimmage. He was trying to make tackles. There was one that he missed, but just as long as you're there, that's the best thing. As long as your defense rotates and you're, because usually the safety is that last line of defense. So if you miss that tackle, that's a big deal. But because it was in, the like right at the line of scrimmage, maybe a little behind it, that was fine because he was there. He'll probably make that next time. There were a couple over pursuits like that. I don't know, like there was that one touchdown they had up the sideline, the Broncos, and I think it was Jair Brown that kind of like over pursued and missed that.
Yes,
missed that tackle. But dude, he looks really good. Good recognition, good pursuit. He's smothering guys. I don't know. I think he's gonna do really well. He's got Hufanga behind there.
Yeah.
To learn
Hufanga,
from.
Tashawn Gibson. So there's no like pressure for him to be a day one starter. But some of the things you mentioned, the things that he still needs to tweak. Again, that's just going to come with some time, and learning from Hufanga and Tashawn Gibson, right? So and Steve Wilkes. So I think it's just a matter of time before he gets more time on the field, maybe with the starters once the regular season gets going. And I think where the positions that they put him in now tells you that they feel he's ready for that big role. You mentioned the cover one, you mentioned like having him on pursuits, blitzes we've seen him in. So that tells you they know he could take on that responsibility. So it's going to be only up from here for Jair Brown. Another two guys in the secondary that I think have been keeping their stock high through these first two preseason games, Ambry Thomas and Samuel Womack. Ambry Thomas, and you can call him a redemption guy because of what he did last season. He underperformed. He was a disappointment. Coming in hot this year, he's earning the big boy snaps and he's playing up to them. Samuel Womack as well. I think he had a near pick, another pass breakup. He was everywhere. So I think the emergence of both of these guys, along with Isaiah Oliver, not really taking advantage of his opportunity, that has so far given the 49ers and Wilkes this the opportunity to mix and match a bit in the secondary, because I think they're wanting to see, okay, Isaiah Oliver is not it right now. Let's see who can step up. And these guys are stepping up. We saw Diamador Lenore, who had been playing on the outside last year. He was playing.
You said his name perfect. I was looking at his name and I was like, I'm afraid to even say that.
Diamador Lenore. It's only because there was the year he was drafted. There was like a draft episode that we did after the draft, and I pronounced it Lenoir. His last name Lenoir. I was like, it's French. Right? So after that, I was corrected, and I've never said his name wrong since. So Diamador Lenoir. But he was playing in the nickel yesterday, which, I don't love, but I mean, he did a great job at it. And Ambry is getting some reps on the outside, which I think he's earned that opportunity just because, like I said, he's playing better. And Womack also played some on the outside too. I believe that was with the second unit. So, yeah, I mean, both of these guys are getting some run, and I think it's because they deserve it. So they're going to have pretty good depth, even with Isaiah Oliver, I think, like underperforming and maybe not even making the roster. I think they keep Isaiah Oliver just for depth. But Ambry and Womack, showing up.
Yeah, Womack was killing it yesterday. He was everywhere. He definitely fits the jersey number 0. You have to be able to stand out if you choose to be the number 0, and I think he did for sure.
Yeah, New Jersey number for him. So maybe he was kind of manifesting, having a better season. A couple of other guys, and going to the offensive side of the ball, guys that have stood out these last 2 weeks, Chris Conley and Ronnie Bell. First, I want to talk about Ronnie Bell. I mean, rookie. For the last few years, we've been like, every rookie wide receiver makes the Kyle Shanahan doghouse. I don't know why. Danny Gray was in it. Ayuk was in it, but not just as a receiver that Bell has looked good, and it seems like he's going to skip the doghouse altogether. But even as a return man, like, I thought he played well in Saturday's game. He looks natural. He had the return where he broke a few tackles. He had that stiff arm in the game-winning drive. And you mentioned the yak, like, he's fitting right in with how these group of guys play. And I will point out he's still making some rookie mistakes. He had the fumble. Luckily, the 49ers did recover that one. And then he had that other ball that hit his hands and it ended up being an interception. Second week in a row that's happened. But overall, I think Kyle Shanahan, loves him because he's making these plays already and he just looks like he belongs. I think this is the type of wide receiver that, the 49ers love to have.
Yeah, he fits in like a glove on this offense. He's just like the other guys that he can kind of step in and he won't miss a beat. I want to see him against press more. Like on that first curl route that he ran, he was smothered by that DB. By that DB, and he ended up like, I don't know if it was the timing or something with Brock Purdy, but he turned to go get it, and that DB was kind of all over him. And I'm not sure if he started out in press on that play, because like the rest of the game, they were playing off coverage on him, and he was just like he was killing them with slants like
Yeah.
the whole rest of the game. And on that one, fumble, it was a high throw, so he kind of had to extend all the way out to get it, and then he pulled it in, and it was like maybe and he was on the verge of being hit. So maybe it was just something where like, it was a high throw. So like maybe he couldn't secure it well enough and kind of pulled it in. But the other one, it literally hit his helmet, hit his face mask, and it bounced in the air. That's like the worst thing that could happen as a receiver. So that was kind of like, not like embarrassing, but kind of embarrassing. It was like, come on, dude, like you can't let that happen. That looked like a Madden play. I don't know if you played Madden, but the last couple of years I've played, it was like every single time the wide receiver didn't catch it, it just flies straight up in the air, and then the computer just comes down with it every time, and it's just like, so I stopped playing that game. But it literally looked like a Madden play. But I don't know. Ronnie Bell looks really good. He's like he's the quarterback's right hand man this early into his career. Like he gets downhill really quick. Especially on those wide receiver screens. He's tough to bring down. He has 74 yards after the catch, which is like amazing, really good. And then 16.3 yards per reception, which that's awesome. So I think he just did a great job.
Yeah, he did. And Laurie, we were just talking before we went live about Chris Conley. Tell me about Chris Conley, because we 49er fans have been impressed with him throughout camp. And like he kind of looks like Brandon Ayuk out there, not just because of the dreads, but they actually have like similar styles as well of how they play. But I know you've seen plenty of Conley from the time he was in the Jaguars. So what can you say about that?
I really liked him on the Jags. He was like that. He was like a red zone target because he's tall, like he's big, and he kind of reminded me at times of like a tight end because he just seemed to like outmatch any of the defenders that were against him. He's more of like that possession receiver, and I just think he kind of has a few of those like attributes that the not that the San Francisco 49ers are missing, but he just brings something different in terms of like possession. He's not a yak guy. He's not going to like get a ton of yards after the catch, but I think, he has really solid hands, and he's definitely a good red zone threat. So, like I said, I've always been a big fan of Conley. I think after the Jags, he went to like the Jets or something like that. He's had a long career. So he's definitely one of the veteran guys in the locker room. So, he's definitely a good guy to have.
Yeah, as
Solid
Ty
depth.
says, he's 6'3" and runs a 4.3, big fast target. Yeah, we don't have a wide receiver like that really on the roster. And I think that's something the 49ers have wanted, for some time. They just haven't really found it in the past. Or they bring in these veterans, but they don't really pan out. And but I think Chris Conley could pan out, and especially with some of the injuries, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. Some of the injuries could give him the opportunity for sure to make this roster, along with Ronnie Bell as well. Really quickly, though, I want to talk about a couple guys that have stopped down, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but they're on notice for the next third preseason game. They need to step up. Okay, Deshaun Jameson, he had a great first preseason game. He muffed the punt in the second one. So, I'm not trying to pile it on Jameson because he's been good, but special teams as a whole just looks meh. I don't know. I don't know if
not
it's
good.
just because they're just not game planning yet or what, but they don't look good, and I'm a little concerned. So special teams, hopefully has a better outing in the third preseason game. Javon Kinlaw did not play because of an illness. Hopefully Kinlaw can go out there and have a better game than he did in the first preseason game, because he did not look good in the first preseason game. He was getting pushed around, and mind you, that was with him looking great in camp. Maybe it was all just a facade. I don't know. So I need to see it. I need to see it in the third preseason game from Kinlaw. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Ty Davis Price with his pass protection, he needs to clean that up if the 49ers are going to trust him with more playing time, or we're just counting the days that Elijah Mitchell comes back from his injury, which should be soon. But those are okay. I mentioned all the special teams, but also Kinlaw and TDP. You're on my list. Those guys, I think, have their stock down as far as I'm concerned. And Chris Wall thinks Sam Darnold's stock is down. He says, I don't know why people are saying he should be QB2. It's such a, like, it's not a black and white, like, conversation, like, trying to figure out, like, who should be QB2. There's so much nuance to it. And one thing, like, me and Laurie touched on earlier is, like, Lance has these slow starts, but at least Darnold can come in and, yes,
he can come in quick.
decent. He's decent, right? Like, we said he doesn't blow us away, but, like, he can come in and finish a drive if needed. So I think,
like with a field goal, Trey Lance may not, he may get the punt. So it's just like, what are you taking here? Sam definitely didn't blow anyone away. Definitely not. I think that, Trey, not that, I don't know. It's tough. I think next preseason game, Shanahan better give him more snaps, or I'm going to take a plane ride over to San Fran and,
Lance, right? Not Darnold.
Yeah. Lance.
Okay.
Trey, he needs more snaps. I would like to see, if he has a chance to be QB2, like, just because of that slow start though, and a couple of those reads, we're gonna see.
Yeah, I mean, Trey definitely has some improvements to make, but, like, as has been mentioned, he's volatile. So it's like his highs are high, but, like, his lows are very low. At least what you do know that you have with Darnold is, like, he's steady. Like, he can give you the same, like, what you're getting with him, and it's not, like, crazy, but you feel good knowing that you know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, and that's something. And that's something that you look for in a QB2, is someone like that, not someone who you have to take your chance with. That's like, QB1 when you're in a rebuilding mode. That's the Trey Lance type of guy. But 49ers are not in rebuilding mode.
Yeah.
So you look for that steady type of player, and definitely Sam Darnold. Is that he's no starter by any means, but
yeah, no, I would hate a situation where he would have to start games for this team. I think if Brock Purdy injured himself and was out for a week or more than a week, I would consider then Trey Lance at that point. But I'm not making the Ty says steady or boring. Both. Steady sometimes is boring, and that is the Sam Darnold experience. But yeah, I mean, I don't envy the 49ers having to make this decision. At the end of the day, all that matters is what Kyle Shanahan thinks. I have no idea what he thinks. We have no idea what he thinks. So we'll find out. But as I said earlier, I want both of them to make it, Darnold and Lance, and I hope the 49ers just don't declare who's your QB2. Just keep both of them, and then if you have to ever make that decision, cross that bridge when you get to it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, all right, let's recap some of the injury news that we got from after the game. Danny Gray, he has a shoulder sprain. He will miss start of the season, or part of the start of the season. And that's also with Ray McLeod, as we heard a couple weeks ago. He's going to be out for the start of the season as well. So that will probably make way for both Ronnie Bell and Chris Conley to potentially make this roster. And I think they should, based on the way they've been playing. So look out for those guys. Kerry Hyder, defensive lineman, he has a stinger, but he might not play the next game. And running back Jeremy McNichols, who they had just recently signed because that was after they let Ronald Awak go. He's out with the hamstring for a few weeks, and they also had just waived who's the other guy they just waived? He was a rookie, not Awak. LeBourne is the other rookie who they had waived from the running back. So they're kind of short on running backs. And so that's why the 49ers signed Brian Hill this morning. You guys might have seen that, as well as wide receiver Anthony Miller, because again, they're also short on wide receivers. So both of those guys probably just to finish out, this final preseason game, and then roster cut shortly after that. Right. So we'll see who sticks around. But the good news is a number of guys are expected back at practice this week. Defensive lineman Kalia Davis, Dre Greenlaw, Drake Jackson, Javon Kinlaw, George Kittle, and Elijah Mitchell all back at practice this week. And hopefully they get some playing time in that final preseason game before week 1. 49ers can't afford any slow starts to this season. So hopefully they get on the right foot. But Laurie, this has been fun. Thank you so much for joining me. And me and Laurie are going to have a weekly show during the season, and I'm really excited about it because, again, I think you just have so much knowledge of the game, way more than I do. So I love getting your perspective on things, and I'm just really excited. So make sure you guys welcome her to, 49ers land, and don't bring that toxic stuff around here. All right. We don't need to introduce her to that.
Come on. Rankings, guys, man, you're killing me. You're going to make me look terrible.
No, you did well. You did well.
But with your help, for sure.
Yeah. But thanks, Laurie. I appreciate it. And for all you guys that tuned in, thank you so much. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe if you have not yet. If you're an audio listener, make sure you leave a rating. But for now, have a good rest of your Monday, folks. Peace.